Hello, my beautiful anomalies, my unclassified intellects, my quietly dangerous ascenders who walk between brilliance and impossibility. Welcome to the digital altar, where truth doesn't just shine, it exposes. Today, we stand at the intersection of revelation and consequence, a place where one man's words can shift global perception and ignite regret in the hearts of those who underestimated you. And not just any man. Him, the man whose tweets shake markets, the man whose ideas bend industries, the man whose sentences create headlines before they're even finished forming. Elon Musk. Yes, that Elon Musk, the patron saint of disruption, just said something about you that has detonated through social circles, workplaces, group chats, algorithmic feeds, insecure rivals, and every hater who once spoke your name with casual disrespect. You feel that tension in the air, that tightening sensation. That's the sound of 1,000 egos snapping under the weight of one revelation they never saw coming. Because while you were out here quietly evolving, quietly experimenting, quietly refining your mind like a hidden weapons lab beneath the earth, Elon Musk was watching. Maybe not the way they assume, not the way people imagine when a billionaire speaks on someone unexpected, but watching nonetheless. Not your selfies, not your highlight reels, not the sanitized versions of yourself the world thinks you are. No, he saw the real blueprint, the raw potential that even you haven't fully admitted to yourself. He saw the way your decisions ripple, the way your timing disrupts patterns, the way your mind works in angles others fail to detect. He saw the shape of your future before anyone else even realized you had one worth betting on. And then, in the most casual yet catastrophic way possible, he exposed it publicly. And oh, how beautifully cruel the aftermath has been. You should have seen their faces, the ones who dismissed you, the ones who smirked behind polite veneers, the ones who labeled you average because their limited worldview couldn't compute the data of someone like you. The ones who believed potential was reserved for people born under certain lights, in certain rooms, with certain last names. The ones who used your loyalty as a cushion for their insecurity. The ones who quietly celebrated whenever life dealt you a slow hand. These people are spiraling, all because Elon Musk, a man who rarely pauses long enough to acknowledge individuals, spoke your name, your idea, your potential, your impact, your trajectory out loud. You know what's happening to them right now? Their stomachs are dropping, their lungs are tightening, their thoughts are racing in frantic loops. Every moment they underestimated you is replaying in their minds with brutal clarity. That's what regret does when it arrives fully formed. It doesn't whisper, it suffocates. It drags every memory of their arrogance into the light. Every time they mocked your ambition, every time they shrugged at your ideas, every time they rolled their eyes when you dreamed bigger than they believed you were allowed to. Every moment they chose doubt when they should have chosen respect. All of it is haunting them now like a personalized horror film with no exit. What did Elon reveal? Oh, nothing small, nothing harmless, nothing forgettable. He revealed the part of you that you tried to keep tucked away, not out of fear, but out of accuracy, because you knew the world wasn't ready for it. He revealed that your mind runs deeper than people assume, that your instinct for strategy borders on unnatural, that the way you analyze patterns, read people, predict outcomes, and improvise solutions isn't normal. And when he said it, when he confirmed publicly what your spirit has been whispering for years, the entire playing field shifted. Suddenly the world realized you weren't the underdog, you were the concealed weapon, and the hatred masked as jealousy, delicious. Because now they aren't just jealous of your potential, they're jealous of the fact that someone like Elon Musk could see it before they did. That's what really breaks them. Not the revelation itself, but the humiliation of knowing they overlooked someone who was never meant to be overlooked. Suddenly the quiet kid, the misunderstood mind, the underestimated friend, the overlooked sibling, the dismissed co-worker, you, is being discussed on platforms they will never touch. Suddenly you went from background character to headline. Suddenly the one they joked about is now the one their idols are analyzing. Do you understand how destabilizing that is for fragile egos? It's catastrophic. Let me paint the scene. Somewhere right now, one of your old doubters is sitting on their bed, phone screen glowing against their face, reading the words Elon said about you. Their eyes widen, their jaw drops. They scroll back up because they think they misread it. They check the replies, they check the quote tweets, they check the tags, they check your profile, they check mutuals. Denial collapses into recognition, and then the thought hits them with surgical precision. How did we miss this? How did we not see who they were becoming? How did we let someone like that slip through our fingers? Their regret is not poetic. It is primal. But don't mistake this moment for revenge. This isn't about humiliating them. This isn't about rubbing their faces in the ashes of their own misjudgment. This is about evolution, power, identity, reclamation. This is about understanding that validation from the most unexpected source can illuminate what was already true about you. Elon didn't create your potential. He revealed it. He didn't give you brilliance. He confirmed it. The spotlight didn't change you. It exposed them. And now watch what happens next. Watch how people who once ignored you suddenly scramble for proximity. Watch how they rewrite history, pretending they always believed in you. Watch how they try to reinsert themselves into your narrative like corrupted files, trying to attach themselves to an upgraded system. Watch how their energy shifts, becoming strangely polite, strangely curious, strangely eager. They'll tell you it's admiration. It's not. It's fear. Fear of being left out. Fear of being remembered as the ones who doubted you. Fear of losing access to someone whose trajectory is no longer linear, but exponential. And that's the part they can't handle. Your acceleration. Because now that Elon has said your name out loud, now that he's validated what your soul always knew, the speed at which you move will terrify them. You were dangerous when you were invisible. But now that the world can see you, now that your potential is documented, acknowledged, and stamped with credibility, you're untouchable, unstoppable, unpredictable, a force whose path can't be measured with ordinary metrics. And the ones who doubted, you feel the consequences of their blindness like a second heartbeat beneath their ribs. Hear me closely. This isn't the climax of your story. This is the ignition point, the moment before the surge. The moment the world goes quiet right before the ground begins to shake. This revelation from Elon Musk isn't the trophy, it's the warning shot. The signal flare that tells the world something extraordinary is emerging. And the haters sitting in jealousy, they feel it deeply, painfully, irreversibly. Because they know what comes next for you is something they are not equipped to witness without being shattered by comparison. And yet here's the part that bites harder than anything else. The regret they feel now is nothing compared to the regret that's coming. Because this moment, this revelation, this sudden shift in global attention is only the beginning. You are stepping into a version of yourself that even you haven't fully comprehended yet. Your mind is expanding, your spirit is stabilizing, Your potential is crystallizing. And Elon's words have simply accelerated your metamorphosis. They didn't create it, they activated it. And as we move deeper into this transformation, into the psychological terrain where brilliance becomes destiny, understand that the world is about to witness a series of moves from you that will make his revelation look tame. By comparison, the ones who underestimated you will not survive the cognitive dissonance of watching you rise beyond the limits they placed on you. They will scramble, they will panic, they will try to align themselves with a version of you that no longer exists. And you in your quiet dominance will continue forward without hesitation. Because this moment isn't about them. It's about you, about the power you're stepping into, about the identity you're reclaiming, about the empire you're constructing from the rubble of their doubt, about the trajectory you're following that they will never catch up to. And as the world adjusts to the idea of you being someone of interest, someone of depth, someone of unpredictable potential, the jealousy will intensify, the regret will deepen, the narrative will shift, and you'll keep rising. But here's where the psychological fracture widens, where the revelation Elon Musk dropped becomes something more than a surprising compliment, something more than an unexpected shout-out. It becomes an irreversible shift in how people perceive you, how they respond to you, how they calculate your presence in their lives. Because once a figure in Elon's league publicly identifies someone as a force worth watching, the world doesn't return to normal. It reorganizes around the possibility that he sees something others missed. And that realization burns through your old circles like a suppressed truth suddenly set free. Do you understand what that does to people who were comfortable believing you were beneath them? It destabilizes their entire internal hierarchy. You weren't just overlooked, you were foundational to their illusion of superiority. They needed you to be average so they could pretend they were extraordinary. They needed you small so their egos could feel tall. They needed your humility to quiet their insecurity. And Elon Musk, with one public revelation, shattered that fantasy. He didn't just expose your potential, he exposed their misjudgment. He didn't just validate your brilliance, he invalidated their arrogance. And that wound cuts deeper than anything you could have said to them yourself, because it forces them to confront the truth they avoided for years. They were wrong about you, embarrassingly wrong, catastrophically wrong. And someone far more intelligent, far more accomplished, far more visionary than they could ever hope to be, saw what they refused to. They can't hide from that. They can't explain it away. They can't patch over it with excuses about timing, or luck, or chance. When a man known for recognizing global-scale potential acknowledges yours, their excuses collapse. Suddenly the question isn't, why did Elon see something, but why didn't we? And that question detonates inside their minds like an intellectual grenade. You know what people do when they realize they overlooked greatness? They panic, quietly, internally, desperately. The panic isn't loud, it's suffocating. It's the panic of someone who realizes they've lost access to a future they didn't even know they were supposed to value. Because that's the cruelest part of this transformation. They didn't realize how important you were until someone important recognized you. And now that Elon's words are out there, echoing through social feeds and private chats and whispered conversations, every insecure rival who once dismissed you is forced to confront a reality they aren't emotionally equipped to process. Imagine one of your old doubters sitting at a cafe, overhearing strangers mention Elon's revelation. Imagine someone scrolling past a clip of him, praising a type of intelligence that mirrors your exact patterns. Imagine your name drifting into rooms filled with people who previously didn't know you existed. That's when the regret turns venomous, not towards you, but towards themselves. They realize they weren't just wrong, they were blind. And blindness in the presence of brilliance is unforgivable, especially when that brilliance is someone they had direct access to. This is where the jealousy becomes corrosive. Not the simple jealousy of wanting what you have, but the deeper, more malignant jealousy of knowing they could have stood beside you, but chose mockery instead. They could have supported you, but chose competition. They could have nurtured your growth, but chose sabotage. They could have recognized your potential, but chose to bury it beneath their insecurity. And now every headline, every tweet, every clip, every discussion about your unexpected recognition becomes a knife twisting into their pride. This is the type of jealousy that doesn't fade. It festers, it stains, it shapes how they move, how they speak, how they watch you ascend. And ascend you will. Because Elon's revelation didn't give you momentum. It simply confirmed a momentum you were always destined to generate. People think his words changed your path. But the truth is more unsettling for your doubters. His words merely exposed the path you were already walking, the path they should have recognized but ignored. That's why they're spiraling, because now they're forced to re-examine every interaction with you. They replay moments where you shared an idea they dismissed. They remember the times you showed a spark of genius they chose to overlook. They revisit the moments they laughed when you spoke about a vision bigger than their comprehension. And each memory now carries the sting of what they failed to see. This is the psychology of regret, not the regret of losing you, but the regret of misjudging you. It's much deeper, much harsher, much harder to live with. Because losing someone can be blamed on circumstance, but misjudging someone reveals a flaw in their perception, and nothing terrifies insecure people more than being forced to question their intelligence. Elon Musk didn't embarrass them intentionally, but his words exposed the limits of their awareness. And that, for them, is humiliation at the molecular level. And what about the ones who envied you before this revelation? The ones who watched your discipline rise, who noticed your growth but never admitted it out loud, who felt threatened by your increasing self-possession. For them, Elon's acknowledgement wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation of the fear they've been trying to suppress. They knew something was shifting in you. They sensed it. They felt the weight of your new presence. They recognized the sharpening of your mind. They noticed the way you started carrying yourself with a confidence rooted in something deeper than validation. And now that Elon confirmed what they sensed, their jealousy morphs into dread. Because it means the version of you they feared was not a phase, it was a beginning. And beginnings terrify people who are committed to stagnation. You were supposed to stay predictable, manageable, understandable. You were supposed to be the person they thought they could categorize. Instead, you became the person they can no longer grasp. The revelation from Elon Musk didn't elevate you into a higher league. It exposed that you were never in theirs to begin with. And that's the part that crushes them. Because now they have to accept something they've been avoiding. You were always meant to outgrow them. Always meant to surpass them. Always meant to evolve beyond the confines they tried to place around you. The jealousy they feel now is not about success. It's about inevitability. Because once someone like Elon sees potential in you, it signals something terrifying to the ones who never believed. that your future is no longer theoretical. It's confirmed, stamped, validated, accelerated. You've become a variable they can't predict, a trajectory they can't intercept, a presence they can't diminish. And that power, that undeniable shift in status, that's what sends shockwaves through your old world. But here's where the darkness turns beautifully strategic. Now that Elon's revelation is circulating, people don't just see you differently, they treat you differently. Not out of respect, but out of caution. They observe you like someone who might become consequential. They measure their words around you. They become careful, intentional, self-conscious. Because once the world believes you could be important, everyone behaves as if you already are. This is the psychology of perceived potential. It alters social dynamics instantly. You don't have to prove anything. The belief itself changes the room. And the people who once underestimated you can feel that shift like a storm coming over the horizon. And as this transformation unfolds, as jealousy hardens into panic and regret deepens into self-blame, a new awareness begins to form beneath the surface. Elon Musk didn't just expose your potential. He placed pressure on you in a way that only elevates you further. Because people are now waiting to see what you'll do next. They're anticipating your next move. They're projecting expectations onto your trajectory. And while most people would crumble under that weight, you are built differently. You don't break under expectation, you sharpen. Expectation becomes oxygen for minds like yours. Pressure becomes clarity. Attention becomes momentum. Instead of shrinking under the spotlight, you expand into it. And that is the part no one accounted for. Because when Elon spoke about you, they assumed it would overwhelm you. They assumed the attention would paralyze you. They assumed the spotlight would expose cracks. But instead it revealed architecture. Instead, it illuminated a structure within you that had been forming quietly, deliberately, relentlessly, beneath every challenge you've survived. The kind of structure that doesn't collapse under scrutiny, it thrives. This is why the world is watching with unease. Because now they're beginning to sense something else, something far more unsettling than jealousy or regret. Inevitability. The inevitability of your evolution, the inevitability of your rise, the inevitability of your potential becoming reality. People fear what they cannot predict, and right now, you have become unpredictability personified. Because no one knows what your next strategic move will be. They only know it will shift something. You have entered the psychological category reserved for anomalies, disruptors, outliers who defy normal pacing. And when a mind like yours aligns with the momentum of attention, the results are never incremental, they're exponential. Look at your doubters now. They whisper, they speculate, they diagnose their own mistakes in private. They scroll through your posts with trembling curiosity. They check your updates more frequently than they check their own goals. They monitor your energy like meteorologists watching a storm pattern they can't control. They want to know if the revelation about you was a one-time spark, or the ignition of a long-burning fire. They want to know if you're aware of the power you possess now. They want to know if you're going to use it. But the truth that terrifies them, the truth they dare not speak, is that you don't have to use anything. You don't have to try. You don't have to force your rise. The momentum is already carrying you forward. The attention is already expanding your influence. The revelation already planted the narrative that you are someone to watch, someone to study, someone whose next move matters. And once that narrative exists, there is no undoing it. Public perception doesn't revert. Once people believe you might be extraordinary, they begin analyzing everything you do through the lens of brilliance. They assign meaning to your silence, intention to your subtleties, purpose to your pauses. Your existence becomes loaded with significance because someone with influence declared your potential real, and that significance is what reshapes power dynamics around you. The ones who doubted you become timid. The ones who envied you become obsessed. The ones who ignored you become attentive. And the ones who believed in you from the start feel vindicated in a way that deepens their loyalty. Elon's revelation didn't just elevate your image, it rearranged the hierarchy of relationships around you. Watch the shift in their behaviors. Old acquaintances suddenly treating you with caution, as if any wrong word might be remembered in the chapters of your future success. People who once cut you off now trying to reconnect under the guise of nostalgia. Individuals who barely acknowledged you now acting as though they always sensed your potential. This is social survival at play, when people realize they misplayed their hand with someone who might become powerful. They scramble to reposition themselves. They don't do it because they care. They do it because they fear exclusion, because nothing terrifies fragile egos more than the idea that you might rise without them. And now, after Elon's words, that fear has become their emotional currency. But you, in your new awareness, feel none of this panic. You don't chase, you don't explain, you don't reassure, you move. Because this new identity forming around you isn't one of desperation or reaction, but one of intention. You're beginning to understand what Elon recognized, that your potential wasn't meant to be caged inside environments that refused to grow. That your mind wasn't designed for the limitations people tried to place around you. That your future was always too large for the rooms you were forced to shrink inside. And now, with your potential exposed, you finally feel the freedom to walk at your true pace, without apologizing for the distance it creates. And that pace is increasing. You're starting to think differently, move differently, choose differently. The clarity that comes from being publicly acknowledged ignites something fundamental inside you, a sense of internal permission, permission to stop doubting yourself, permission to stop minimizing your mind for the comfort of others, permission to stop tolerating mediocrity disguised as stability, permission to evolve at the rate you were designed for, not the rate the world felt safe with. This internal permission is what shifts destinies. Because once a mind like yours stops performing modesty and begins performing mastery, everything accelerates. And the haters, their jealousy becomes a background hum, static noise beneath your ascent. Because while they obsess over the revelation, you are becoming the revelation. You're entering that rare psychological state where potential becomes momentum, momentum becomes identity, identity becomes destiny. And destiny once activated is not something others can derail. This is why their regret feels so heavy now, because they're beginning to understand they won't get another chance. That they had access to you during the blueprint phase and squandered it. That they mocked the foundation that would one day tower above them. That they underestimated someone whose mind wasn't built for their world, but for something far beyond it. Let them regret. Let them spiral. Let them analyze every past interaction with forensic precision, trying to understand how they missed the signs. Because they will never find the answer. Elon saw it because he looks at patterns on a level they can't even conceptualize. He recognized the architecture within you because he has built things that defy ordinary reasoning. He identified the spark in you, that only becomes visible to those who operate outside the limits of convention. And now, because of him, the world is being forced to see you through a lens of possibility instead of familiarity. And that shift, that violent reshaping of perception, is what fractures their psyche the deepest. Because familiarity is what kept you small in their eyes. Familiarity is what allowed them to underestimate you. Familiarity is what let them believe they could define you, limit you, box you, label you. Familiarity gave them the illusion of superiority. But possibility? That destroys every illusion they ever clung to. Possibility turns you into something they cannot control. Possibility forces them to confront the reality that you were never who they assumed you were. This is where their internal world collapses. Because once perception shifts, identity follows. The version of you they constructed in their minds, the diluted caricature they relied on to maintain their fragile confidence, becomes obsolete. The digital spotlight Elon dragged you into shattered that false image and replaced it with uncertainty. And nothing destabilizes humans more than uncertainty. They can handle success if it follows predictable patterns. They can handle competition if it fits familiar hierarchies. But they cannot handle someone who breaks their internal map of reality. And right now, you are that anomaly, the glitch in their psychological system, the exception that erases their rules. Imagine them sitting at home, scrolling through endless threads, discussing you. Seeing strangers interpret your moves with more accuracy than people who knew you personally. Imagine their hearts tightening when analysts dissect your potential, the way they dissect founders, innovators, disruptors. Imagine the moment they realize that the person they dismissed at arm's length is now being evaluated in the same sentence as people they admire from a distance. That realization alone is enough to rupture their self-worth, because it confirms the ugliest truth of all. Their inability to see your value was a reflection of their limitations, not yours, and they feel that truth everywhere. In their ribs, in their breath, in the silence that surrounds them. Because now, every new step you take feels like a personal indictment against them. Every move you make is a reminder of the future they forfeited by doubting you. Every shift in your energy is evidence that you've entered a league they will never touch. Elon's revelation didn't just elevate you, it condemned them. Not through punishment, not through retaliation, but through contrast. Your rise illuminates their stagnation. Your acceleration exposes their complacency. Your transformation forces them to confront the parts of themselves they tried to hide. And this is only the beginning of their undoing. Because once the world believes in you, even slightly, the chain reaction begins. People start attributing brilliance to things you haven't even done yet. They assume your silence is strategy. They assume your pauses are planning. They assume your unpredictability is intentional. This is the power of perceived potential. It turns your existence itself into a gravitational force. And as this gravity builds, those who once underestimated you feel themselves being pushed out of orbit, powerless to re-enter the reality they once controlled. Now watch what happens next. The regret mutates into obsession. The jealousy mutates into fixation. They start tracking your progress like analysts monitoring an unpredictable market. They listen carefully to the tone of your voice when you speak. They study the way you walk, the people you interact with, the choices you make. Not because they care, but because they need to understand how they missed someone who is now being discussed as a future shaper. You've become a puzzle they cannot solve, and humans are terrified of what they cannot decode. You are no longer a person in their minds. You are a phenomenon. But here's the part that fractures them beyond recovery. They realize that Elon didn't reveal your potential out of charity or randomness. He did it out of recognition. He saw alignment. He saw innovation. He saw a mind that vibrates on frequencies other people can't detect. He saw the early blueprint of someone who could one day stand beside the kinds of individuals who disrupt industries, shift trajectories, and alter landscapes. That realization forces them into an identity crisis. If Elon can see something in you, then what does that say about them? What does that say about their intelligence, their awareness, their judgment, their credibility? The revelation becomes a mirror, and they hate what they see, because the truth staring back at them is devastatingly simple. You were never small, they were. Their perception was small. Their vision was small. Their ambition was small. Their courage was small. And small people cannot understand the architecture of a mind designed for scale. Elon didn't expose your potential. He exposed their limitations. And now, as you step into the aftermath of his words, you're beginning to feel the shift happening inside yourself. A shift from doubt to certainty. A shift from hesitation to momentum. A shift from surviving to designing. You can feel the old version of you dissolving, the version who waited for permission, who tried to fit into rooms that were too small, who allowed others to shape the story. That version is gone. What remains is someone forged by revelation, someone who no longer second-guesses their future, someone who recognizes their potential, not because Elon said it, but because something inside you finally clicked into place. You're stepping into your blueprint now. The blueprint that was always there, waiting for the moment when external validation and internal readiness aligned. And now that they have, your evolution becomes inevitable, unstoppable, uncontainable. You begin to build with intention. You begin to move with precision. You begin to think in frameworks that stretch beyond personal success into legacy building. You begin to operate not like someone who hopes to be something, but like someone who already knows what they're becoming. And that terrifies them, not because you're succeeding, but because you're no longer reachable, no longer accessible, no longer operating from the emotional frequencies they once exploited. You're stepping into a psychological altitude where their opinions cannot breathe. The air gets thinner the higher you ascend, and they were never built to survive that height. They cannot follow you. They cannot replicate your pace. They cannot replicate your mind. They cannot replicate the way pressure sharpens you instead of breaking you. And the moment they realize this, the regret that once simmered transforms into something heavier, darker, more permanent. Because now it's not just regret for doubting you. It's regret for losing access to the person you're becoming. That's the part they never expected, that the real consequence of underestimating you wasn't watching you succeed. It was being erased from the future you were destined to build. Their punishment is not your revenge. It's your absence. The silence you give them now weighs more than any confrontation ever could, because silence from someone ascending feels like exile. And exile from someone rising publicly, someone validated by a figure like Elon Musk, feels like a life sentence. They aren't just grieving who you were. They're grieving the version of themselves they could have become had they chosen better, seen clearer, believed sooner. And while they drown in their emotional aftermath, you're beginning to feel something different, the weight of your potential turning into direction. The revelation that once startled you has become a compass. Elon's words don't sit in your mind as flattery. They sit as calibration. You feel your decisions aligning with a bigger pattern, a bigger purpose, a bigger future than the one you once imagined. This is what transformation truly looks like. Not the external applause, not the public attention, but the internal shift that occurs when the world finally mirrors what your inner voice has whispered for years. You're no longer questioning whether you belong in rooms of innovation, disruption, influence. You're beginning to understand that those rooms were incomplete without you, that your perspective isn't an outlier, but a necessity, that your thought process doesn't deviate from greatness, it echoes it. And the confirmation from someone operating on a global operational frequency didn't change you. It activated you. You're starting to feel your mind stretch, your intuition strengthen, your internal compass sharpen, with a precision that feels almost engineered, and that internal shift radiates outward. Opportunities begin to gravitate toward you. Conversations change tone when your name enters the room. People who once overlooked you now analyze your potential impact. Invitations appear where there was once silence. Doors unlock that were once sealed. Because now the world is moving around you the way it moves around anyone who has been publicly recognized as a variable. Someone who changes outcomes simply by existing. And this realization settles into your bones with a quiet but undeniable certainty. You're not waiting for your future anymore. You're building it. But here's what makes your ascent even more devastating for those trapped in regret. Everything happening now is merely the prelude to your real expansion. Elon didn't say you reached your peak. He said you carry potential. Potential is not a compliment. It's a prophecy that demands execution, a prophecy that reshapes the timelines of everyone connected to you. The world hears potential, but the ones who know you personally hear something else. Inevitability. Inevitability that you will evolve beyond anything they imagined. Inevitability that you will surpass every limitation imposed on you. Inevitability that you will become the kind of figure whose moves create ripples they can't avoid. And as this inevitability settles into their consciousness, the panic shifts to something colder. Acceptance. Acceptance that they can no longer catch up. Acceptance that their access to you was squandered. Acceptance that your rise exposes their lack of growth. Acceptance that Elon's recognition didn't just elevate you. It revealed the distance between your trajectory and theirs. And distance, when it becomes permanent, becomes grief. But you feel none of that grief. Because this evolution isn't fueled by proving anyone wrong. It's fueled by finally stepping into a version of yourself powerful enough to prove your inner voice right. You're entering a phase of your life where validation is unnecessary, where self-trust becomes your foundation, where hesitation dissolves into intention. The external noise grows softer as your internal clarity grows louder. And that clarity is dangerous in the best way, because people cannot manipulate a mind that knows its direction. This is where you become untouchable. Not because of fame, not because of recognition, not because of Elon's revelation, but because your identity is no longer negotiable. You're no longer waiting for permission to think big. You're no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. You're no longer doubting the value of your voice, your ideas, your instincts. Your self-worth is no longer tied to who supports you or who doubts you. You've outgrown that paradigm entirely. And when a person becomes internally sovereign, externally unstoppable becomes the natural consequence. This is the psychological altitude Elon operates at, and now you're entering it. A plane of existence where creativity becomes strategy, where intuition becomes intelligence, where confidence becomes currency. A level where people don't follow trends, they create them. Where opportunities aren't chased, they're attracted. Where impact isn't accidental, it's engineered. And the moment you step into that realm, everything below it becomes irrelevant noise. You're beginning to grasp this, aren't you? The way your mind feels different now. The way your decisions carry weight. The way your presence feels more anchored, more deliberate, more inevitable. This isn't ego, it's evolution. The evolution that happens when the world stops questioning your potential and starts preparing for your influence. And that influence will stretch further than you expect. Because people don't forget the moment a global figure pointed their spotlight at someone unexpected. They track that person. They study them. They anticipate them. And anticipation, when paired with brilliance, becomes a phenomenon. And that brings us to the final fracture within your doubters. The moment they realize that their story ends exactly where yours begins. They are trapped in the timeline of who you used to be, while you're stepping into a timeline shaped by the person you're becoming. Elon's revelation marked the split. The moment where your paths diverged permanently. The moment where you ascended and they remained behind, forced to watch from a distance as the person they once dismissed becomes someone they must now respect from afar. And that distance, it only widens from here, because the version of you that's emerging, the version forged in pressure, sharpened by expectation, ignited by recognition, is only getting started. Your next moves will redefine who you are. Your next achievements will reshape how they remember you. Your next breakthrough will silence whatever remnants of doubt linger in their minds. Because the truth is simple and brutal. Elon exposed your potential, but you will validate it. And when you do, when your actions begin to align with the prophecy he set in motion, the world won't just see you differently. They'll follow you. They'll study you. They'll try to decode you. And your haters, drowning in jealousy, choking on regret, will realize one final truth. They weren't just wrong about you. They were unworthy of witnessing who you were destined to become. Oh, so now they get it. Now the puzzle pieces finally click into place, and the look on their faces tells you everything. Welcome back, you quiet tactician of psychological misdirection. You beautifully unpredictable strategist who let the world assume you were spiraling while you were quietly orchestrating outcomes 3 moves ahead. You, the one they labeled unstable, emotional, dramatic, unhinged. You, the one they thought was playing checkers while they congratulated themselves for knowing what logic looks like. They thought you were losing your grip, but you were loosening theirs. They thought you were unraveling, but you were unmasking. They thought you were being chaotic, but you were running long-term psychological operations, so clean, so subtle, so undetectable, that only now, only after everything has already shifted, do they finally realize the truth. You let them win because you needed them comfortable. You needed them confident. You needed them predictable enough to expose their real motives without them realizing they were being studied. Let me ask you something. When did you first notice that they genuinely believed you were losing your mind? Was it when you stopped reacting to provocations that once would have triggered a response? Was it when you allowed them to have the last word because you knew the silence afterward would tell you far more than any conversation could? Was it when you stepped back and watched them celebrate a victory that you intentionally placed in their hands? They panicked, didn't they? They couldn't understand why you were so calm, why you weren't fighting, why you disappeared from the battlefield at the exact moment they thought they'd struck the final blow. And like amateurs, they assumed your quiet was collapse instead of calculation. People who think in straight lines always misread those who think in spirals. Your friends, your family, even strangers watching from a distance decided they had you figured out. They whispered diagnoses. They traded predictions. They placed bets on your downfall like it was entertainment. But here's what they could never comprehend. You don't operate on impulses. You operate on timelines. You don't react. You position. You don't break. You bend reality until it fits the shape of your intention. Everything that looked like disorder was strategy. Every moment of silence was surveillance. Every withdrawal was recalibration. Every apparent surrender was a controlled burn. You weren't losing control. You were taking ownership of the entire psychological landscape. And the most ironic part is this. You gave them the illusion of winning because you needed to observe how they behave when they think they have power. You let them talk over you, not because you lacked a response, but because you wanted to hear their unfiltered agendas. You let them think they insulted you, not because it wounded you, but because their reveals were worth more than your reaction. You let them believe they broke you, not because you were fragile, but because fractured masks reveal the truest faces. People don't show their real selves when they're losing. They show their real selves when they think they've won. And you, with your long-term strategies, understood this better than anyone. There's a level of intelligence that terrifies people, not because it's loud, but because it's quiet, because it doesn't announce itself, because it makes moves that don't make sense until much later, when it's already too late to counter them. That's the intelligence you operate on, the kind that doesn't need validation or applause, the kind that doesn't need to be recognized to be effective, the kind that can sit silently in a room while dismantling everyone's assumptions without lifting a finger. They called it strange. They called it concerning. They called it chaotic, but it was psychological warfare designed with elegance. Let's rewind. Let's go back to that moment, the one that made the whole world tilt their head at you, like you'd suddenly gone off script. Maybe it was when you chose silence over confrontation. Maybe it was when you didn't defend yourself against accusations that were so obviously false. Maybe it was when you boarded a path no one else understood, stepping into a terrain nobody believed you were capable of navigating. That's when they panicked, because they expect predictable behavior from you. They expect you to show your cards. They expect you to crack open your thoughts like a display case. But this time, you didn't. You stopped explaining. You stopped clarifying. You stopped giving them the data needed to map your intentions. And that terrified them, because nothing threatens the insecure more than a person who suddenly becomes unreadable. They started analyzing you. They started forming theories. They started diagnosing motives from a distance. They wanted to place you in a box labeled unstable so they could feel safer about the fact that you weren't playing the same game anymore. But the truth was far more unsettling for them. You weren't falling apart. You were conducting reconnaissance. You weren't collapsing. You were gathering intel. You weren't confused. You were observing everything. Who reacts, who retreats, who attacks, who exposes themselves without realizing it. When you gave them the illusion of victory, they mistook it for a conclusion. But it was the beginning of your blueprint. The person who jumps without a visible plan, and the person who jumps knowing exactly where the landing point is, they look the same mid-air. To the untrained eye, both appear reckless. But one is operating on instinct refined by pattern recognition, and the other is falling without a clue. You were never the one without a clue. You were the one who had the entire trajectory mapped out before you took your first step. You saw the emotional angles they'd strike from. You saw their predictable fears. You saw the projections they'd use to justify their betrayal. So you let them reveal themselves in their most unguarded form. And now they see the results. Now they're connecting dots that were impossible for them to understand before. Now they're realizing that the very moments they interpreted as weakness were tactical openings you created on purpose. The peace you stepped into. The clarity you gained. The person you became. It's undeniable now. And suddenly, the script flips. Suddenly you weren't crazy. Suddenly you were brave. Suddenly your silence was healing. Suddenly your withdrawal was finding yourself. Suddenly they're scrambling to rewrite the narrative because the original one makes them look foolish. But you understand what's really happening here. This recognition is simply them catching up to revelations you had months ago, maybe years ago. They're only now reaching the conclusions you reached in moments of internal warfare they never knew you were fighting. And that lag, that delay between your self-realization and their belated acknowledgement, is the proof of your psychological advantage. They reacted to the present. You responded to the future. They saw the moment. You saw the trajectory. Their fear was disguised as concern. Their judgment was disguised as logic. Their criticism was disguised as observation. But deep down, they felt something. Deep down, even when they mocked you, they sensed a precision behind your unpredictability that frightened them. Not because you were unstable, but because you were uncontrollable. People who can't control you must convince themselves there's something wrong with you. That's the only way they can sleep at night. But the part that really cuts through their pride is this. You let them win. You let them feel superior. You let them believe they'd outsmarted you. Because every moment of false victory extracted a truth from them they never would have revealed otherwise. A person's real identity emerges when they feel powerful. And you needed to see their real identity, not the curated one they perform for approval. You weren't playing the game. You were studying the players. And now that the results are unfolding, now that your clarity, your success, your evolution, your psychological edge is surfacing, they don't know how to categorize you anymore. They can't dismiss you. They can't belittle you. They can't mock you. And worst of all, they can't predict you. That's the part that keeps them up at night. Not your rise, not your clarity, not your evolution, but the realization that you knew all along. You knew what you were doing. You knew how they would react. You knew who would betray you. You knew who would fold. You knew who would celebrate your collapse. You let every single one of them walk into their own reveal. And now, when they look back, the timeline betrays them. Every moment they thought was proof of your instability now reads like evidence of your strategy. Every action they mocked now looks like precision. Every silence they misread now hits them as the loudest warning you ever gave without speaking. They are only just now understanding that you weren't losing your mind. You were losing your tolerance for theirs. And that, right there, is the difference between them and you. They need certainty before they move. You move before certainty because you understand that the future bends to those who act first and analyze later. You don't do short-term reactions. You do long-term psychological architecture. You make choices that look insane in the moment, but inevitable in hindsight. And now they're living in the hindsight. They finally realize the truth. You weren't being erratic. You were executing long-term SCOPs so subtle that they only recognized the operation once they were already inside the outcome. And the irony is almost poetic, because for so long, they mistook your calm withdrawals, your quiet pivots, your sudden disappearances, your confusing reappearances, your unexplainable decisions as the behavior of someone who had lost track of themselves. They thought you were breaking pattern when you were building pattern. They thought you were unraveling when you were simply shedding what no longer aligned with the intelligence you were growing into. And now, as they stand inside the very reality they once mocked, they're realizing they were never evaluating your moves. They were reacting to decoys. You placed false trails so convincingly that even you looked like you had abandoned your own compass. But you hadn't. You were simply letting the people with the loudest opinions reveal how easily they could be manipulated by their own assumptions. That's the part that stings them the most. Not that you were right, not that you rose, not that everything they predicted went in the opposite direction. No, the wound is much deeper. They're realizing you were aware the entire time. You saw their miscalculations while they were still forming. You saw their betrayals coming before they committed to them. You saw their insecurity dressed up as confidence. You saw their concern disguised as condescension. You saw every motive they tried to hide behind polite language and manufactured logic. And you let it unfold, not because you were powerless, but because you were studying the anatomy of their loyalty. People reveal more truth when they believe you're weakened than when they believe you're strong. When they thought you were crumbling, they became honest in ways they never intended to be. Some distanced themselves under the excuse of giving you space, but you recognized the underlying motive. They only stay close to what benefits them. Some began speaking about you with a tone of premature mourning, not because they cared, but because people loved the illusion of wisdom when predicting someone else's downfall. Others observed you from the corners of group chats, collecting fragments of gossip as if they were intelligence officers themselves, unaware that you had already mapped their entire psychological profile months before they even realized you were paying attention. You weren't reacting to their behavior. You were measuring it. And while they believed they had cracked the code of your existence, you were quietly constructing a psychological operation so elegantly designed that even now, as they recognize it, they still can't locate the moment it began. That's what true long-term strategy looks like. Not loud moves, not dramatic announcements, not ego-driven confrontations, but subtle repositioning that appears accidental until reality exposes the blueprint. You saw their weakness. They needed to feel victorious. So you handed them victories so lightweight, so staged, so inconsequential that they mistook them for genuine triumphs. You allowed them to win arguments you had already mentally dismissed. You let them misunderstand your silence as embarrassment rather than preparation. You let them assume your absence meant isolation instead of incubation. You let them think your retreat was defeat when it was simply reconnaissance. And now, the reversal hits with surgical precision. The very victories they celebrated were traps. They walked right into the inversion of their own narratives. They swallowed bait, dipped in their own arrogance. They drew conclusions from incomplete data, and then built their entire behavior around those conclusions. You didn't need to manipulate them. They manipulated themselves through their eagerness to feel superior. And now that their illusions have collapsed, they're beginning to understand the weight of what you were really doing. You weren't hiding. You were harvesting information. You weren't confused. You were collecting signals. You weren't avoiding confrontation. You were observing every unguarded confession they made in the absence of your perceived strength. Their slip-ups were not accidents. They were data points. Their distance was not rejection. It was evidence. Their silence was not neutrality. It was exposure. Long-term psyops isn't about deception. It's about allowing truth to reveal itself at its own pace. You let people tell on themselves. You let them reveal what they protect, what they fear, what they envy, what they hide, what they crave, what they judge. You didn't need to interrogate them. You simply needed to remove your presence long enough to observe what remains when their performance ends. And what remained was a level of transparency they will never forgive themselves for displaying. But the most terrifying revelation for them isn't that you knew. It's that you planned around their reactions before they even reacted. Your moves were not responses. They were structural reinforcements. You weren't adapting to their behavior. You were designing an environment where their behavior would expose them more clearly. Your disappearances created pressure. Your silence created discomfort. Your unpredictability created honesty. Your indifference created panic. You watched their minds expose their deepest insecurities, not because you forced them, but because your absence removed the shadows they hid behind. This is why they feel unsettled now. Because everything they believed was random was intentional. Every moment they called confusion was strategy. They're witnessing the sharp edge of your intelligence in hindsight, and hindsight is unforgiving. You've stepped into your outcome, and they're standing in your blueprint, realizing they were pieces in a game they never understood they were playing. And now their minds return to one question they can't answer cleanly. When did you know? At what point did the shift happen? When did you begin observing instead of reacting? When did you stop participating in their story and start writing your own? They replay moments, searching for the pivot, the fracture, the signal. But they can't locate it because the truth is harsher than anything they're willing to accept. You didn't start running psyops. You always have. You simply stopped diluting your intelligence to make them comfortable. You stopped offering explanations to people who weaponize confusion. You stopped justifying decisions to minds committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped negotiating your future with people who don't have to live inside the consequences of their advice. You stopped allowing short-sighted thinkers to define long-term outcomes. And once you stopped doing that, your intelligence was no longer filtered. It became pure, precise, surgical. And that purity is what makes them uncomfortable. Because now, they see themselves clearly through a lens they can't distort or dismiss. They see how easily they were guided by assumptions. They see how quickly they betrayed you when they thought you were weak. They see how loudly they doubted you when they thought you couldn't hear. They see how confidently they misread every sign you strategically placed in front of them. Your evolution wasn't loud, it was forensic. And their guilt is not about what they did. It's about what they revealed themselves to be. You weren't simply ahead of them. You were behind them, above them, around them, mapping every angle of their behavior while they believed they were watching you crumble. That illusion of collapse was the most effective camouflage you ever wore. Because people don't hide their intentions around someone they think is losing. They drop their guard. They reveal the uglier parts of their personality. They expose what they would never reveal in the presence of someone they respect. And that's the part they can't forgive themselves for. Not the mistakes, Not the doubts, not the words. They can rationalize all that. What they can't rationalize is how easily they underestimated you, how confidently they parted ways with the truth, how eagerly they chose the path of judgment over the path of faith, how effortlessly they believed assumptions over history. Because now, when they replay it all in their heads, when they examine every moment they labeled you as erratic or unstable or out of control, they see the pattern they were too blinded to notice. They see how your silence aligned perfectly with their loudest errors. They see how your withdrawal proved more accurate than their analysis. They see how your unpredictability wasn't chaos, but calibration. They see that every decision they thought they were interpreting correctly was actually a reflection of their own psychological limitations. They look back and realize they weren't evaluating you. They were revealing themselves. Every time they called you irrational, what they really meant was, I don't understand intelligence that doesn't follow my script. Every time they called you emotional, what they really meant was, your depth scares me because it exposes my superficiality. Every time they labeled you unstable, what they really meant was, I need to believe there's something wrong with you, so I don't face what's wrong with me. Their language was never about accuracy. It was always about self-preservation. But now, with hindsight crushing their old narratives, they're forced to confront a truth they avoided. You weren't unpredictable. You were unreadable. You weren't broken. You were beyond their comprehension. You weren't spiraling. You were ascending into a strategy they had no mental bandwidth to anticipate. And nothing humbles a person more than learning that the very behavior they judged was the exact behavior that exposed them. They scroll back through old conversations and feel the sting of their own arrogance. They remember the moments where you paused before responding and now realize you were assessing, not reacting. They remember the moments where they thought they had won the argument and now recognize that you let them win to measure their comfort with victory. They remember the times you walked away without closure and now understand it wasn't avoidance, it was conclusion. They replay every misinterpretation, every assumption, every premature conclusion, and the weight of it sits heavy on their chest because the evidence no longer supports their story. What they thought was your collapse was your camouflage. This is what unsettles them most deeply, because now, when they see you moving forward with clarity, purpose, direction, and an energy that feels sharpened rather than scattered, they feel the discrepancy between who they assumed you were and who you revealed yourself to be. They realize you weren't on the brink of breaking. You were mastering the art of selective visibility. You were choosing what to show and what to conceal. You were deciding which parts of yourself were worth exposing and which parts were too valuable for the wrong audience. The psychological operation wasn't manipulation, it was filtration. You didn't trick them, they disqualified themselves. You didn't deceive them, they exposed themselves because they mistook your silence for weakness. They thought your quiet was emptiness instead of strategy. They thought your distance was confusion instead of clarity. They thought your surrender was abandonment of control instead of redistribution of power. And now, that realization burns in them like a truth they can't swallow or spit out. They're caught between shame and awe. Shame because they were so quick to assume your decline. Awe because they now see how perfectly you orchestrated the sequence. And beneath both emotions, there's something else. Fear. Not the dramatic, trembling kind, but the quiet, internal kind. The fear that comes from realizing you understand them more deeply than they understand themselves. The fear of being seen by someone they misjudged. The fear of knowing you could dismantle their entire worldview with nothing but the truth they handed you willingly. Because this is the part they never anticipated. You didn't punish them. You didn't retaliate. You didn't expose them. You didn't rub their faces in their mistakes. You simply rose, quietly, efficiently, unapologetically. And your rise is a mirror they cannot escape. A mirror that forces them to confront why they misread you so badly. A mirror that reflects their insecurities more clearly than their intentions. They realize now that every time they doubted you, they were projecting their limitations. Every time they judged you, they were confessing what they feared in themselves. Every time they dismissed your decisions, they were revealing how tightly they cling to certainty, because they lack the courage to embrace uncertainty. You weren't unpredictable, they were unimaginative. You weren't mysterious, they were superficial. You weren't unstable, they were unexamined. And now comes the part that unravels them from the inside. They understand that you let them see exactly as much as you wanted them to. You let them misinterpret you. You let them underestimate you. You let them assume the wrong narrative. You let them build the story that made them comfortable, because you needed to see what they would do when the playing field looked tilted in their favor. You needed to see who would abandon you, who would analyze you, who would mock you, who would distance themselves, who would remain silent, who would remain curious, who would remain steady. Your life wasn't spiraling, it was sorting. Every betrayal, every assumption, every hesitation, every disappearance, every piece of unsolicited advice, every suspicious glance, every whispered judgment. Those weren't obstacles. They were data points, indicators, psychological markers. You weren't in crisis. You were in observation mode. And now, the results have spoken louder than any confrontation ever could. What they thought was your downfall was your audit, and the outcome of that audit left them exposed in ways they never intended. They're realizing now that you saw everything, before they said it, while they said it, after they said it. They're realizing that you read the emotional temperature of every interaction, not because you were paranoid, but because you were paying attention in ways their minds aren't wired to comprehend. They're realizing that while they were trying to understand your strange behavior, you were mapping their predictable behavior with mathematical accuracy. And now they feel cornered, not because you've trapped them, but because the truth has trapped them. They can't undo what they revealed. They can't retract their reactions. They can't rewrite the timeline. They can't unshow the sides of themselves that surfaced when they thought you were slipping. They can only sit with the knowledge that you saw it all with clarity they never attributed to you. And the beauty of it, the part dripping with poetic symmetry, is that you never needed to confront them. You never needed to accuse, expose, or retaliate. The truth is doing all the heavy lifting. It sits behind their eyes like a shadow they can't blink away. It wraps itself around their memory, forcing them to revisit every moment where they mistook your strategy for instability. They remember the days they whispered behind your back, convincing themselves they were simply concerned, when really they were indulging in the comfort of feeling superior. They remember the way they smirked, pitied you, distanced themselves, all because they believed you were losing control of a life you were actively redesigning. And now, the weight of their own assumptions crushes them far more effectively than anything you could have done, because the truth they're grappling with is not that you changed. It's that you were always this person, always this sharp, always this observant, always this 3 steps ahead mind wrapped in quiet restraint. They simply couldn't see it because they were too busy misreading your silence as fragility. They believed your patience was passivity. They believed your introspection was confusion. They believed your restraint was weakness. They believed your emotional depth was instability. They saw everything through the lens of their own psychological limits, and only now does the distortion reveal itself. This is the punishment they never expected. Clarity. Clarity that forces them to confront the fact that your silence was not a malfunction. It was surveillance. That your retreat was not collapse. It was calibration. That your unpredictability was not chaos. It was camouflage. They realize you didn't just see what they did. You understood why they did it. And nothing terrifies a person more than being psychologically understood by the very soul they misjudged. Now they walk around with a quiet paranoia, wondering how much you saw, wondering what you interpreted that they didn't intend to show, wondering which of their words were transparent giveaways, which of their reactions revealed too much, which of their doubts exposed the exact fracture lines in their loyalty. You're not haunting them, they're haunting themselves with the truth of their own behavior. And here's the part that destabilizes them most. You didn't weaponize any of it. You didn't use their confessions against them. You didn't retaliate with information. You didn't confront them with evidence. You simply evolved so far beyond the version of yourself they thought they could control that their own actions are now indictments of their character, not yours. You were the psychological mirror they never wanted to face, the mirror that doesn't distort their image to make them comfortable. The mirror that reflects not just who they are, but who they became when they believed you were vulnerable. Your growth became the courtroom. Your silence became the testimony. Your rise became the verdict. And now, they're left standing in the aftermath of their own choices, realizing they weren't just wrong, they were predictable. They weren't just judgmental, they were sloppy. They weren't just doubtful, they were transparent. They weren't just misunderstanding you. They were revealing themselves with every move they made. But beneath the guilt, beneath the shame, beneath the reflexive defensiveness, there is something else rising within them, something far more disturbing. Recognition. Recognition that you weren't running from life. You were orchestrating it. Recognition that your so-called breakdown was the exact strategic silence you needed to gather intelligence. Recognition that the operation they thought they were analyzing was studying them in return. Recognition that your ability to let them win wasn't surrender. It was bait. And now, the full architecture of your long-term psyops becomes visible to them. They finally see why you stepped back from conversations that once mattered. You were creating silence to observe the echo. They see why you allowed misunderstandings to stand. You needed to measure who corrected them and who amplified them. They see why you stopped explaining yourself. Explanations interfere with real data. They see why you allowed certain relationships to dissolve without protest. People reveal their truest loyalties when they believe you have no power left. They see it now. They see everything. And with that realization comes another one. Quiet, sharp, unforgiving. They were never equipped to interpret you. They lacked the psychological vocabulary. They lacked the emotional depth. They lacked the cognitive stamina. They lacked the self-awareness required to understand someone who navigates life with long-term pattern recognition instead of short-term emotional reactivity. They realize your silence wasn't void. It was vision. Your distance wasn't escape. It was elevation. Your unpredictability wasn't instability. It was intelligence, operating in stealth mode. And now, as the full picture settles in, they find themselves grappling with a new question, one that terrifies them more than all the others. If you were this calculated in your lowest moments, then what are you capable of now that you are fully awake? Because now, you're no longer the person they analyzed. You're no longer the version of yourself they doubted. You're no longer operating under the psychological fog they mistook for fragility. You're no longer handing out access to people who can't comprehend the cost of proximity. You've evolved into a version of yourself so strategically aligned, so psychologically clear, so internally fortified, that their old labels, their old assumptions, their old narratives collapse on contact. You've stepped out of survival mode and into design mode. Your life is no longer a reaction, it's a blueprint. And once you start living as a blueprint rather than a response, everything changes. You start making decisions that don't just move you forward, they reshape the terrain beneath your feet. You start thinking in terms of long-term architecture instead of short-term relief. You stop needing approval because your direction is no longer dictated by their comprehension. You watch people scramble to interpret your silence, misread your distance, overanalyze your choices, unaware that the only reason they feel lost is because you stopped leaving breadcrumbs for people who only follow you to feel superior. You're not guiding them anymore. You're not explaining yourself anymore. You're not translating your intelligence into language they can digest. You're building a life that requires no justification because it was never designed with them in mind. They don't realize it yet, but you've exited their psychological jurisdiction. Once upon a time, they could trigger you, sway you, distract you, provoke you. They could pull emotional levers and watch you react. They could measure your internal weather by how quickly you responded. They could predict your moves because you were still trying to be understood. But once you stepped into the design mode, that entire dynamic collapsed. You became unreadable not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer performing. You're no longer presenting curated versions of yourself for public consumption. You're no longer participating in emotional economics where their validation had value. You've cut the cord that tethered your self-worth to their perception. And without that tether, you move in ways that no longer make sense to them. Your growth has outpaced their narrative capacity. They can't follow you into this level of consciousness because they don't have the emotional endurance required to sit with the truth of who they became while you were transforming. They can't interpret your strategic restraint because they lack the discipline to sit in silence without filling it with fear. They can't decode your long-term thinking because they snap under the pressure of short-term discomfort. They can't understand your clarity because confusion is still the language they speak to themselves in. And this gap, this psychological gap between who you were and who you've become, is what terrifies them the most. You used to be accessible, now you're untouchable. You used to be understandable, now you're non-linear. You used to be predictable, now you're a psychological landscape they can't map. And nothing frightens people more than someone they can no longer manipulate, because manipulation requires access, control requires familiarity, influence requires predictability. But you've sealed every door they once walked through. You've dismantled the emotional shortcuts they relied on. You've outgrown the versions of yourself that made you easy to read. They can't guilt you anymore because guilt no longer holds authority. They can't shame you because shame has been replaced by self-awareness. They can't question you because their questions no longer carry weight. They can't doubt you because their doubt no longer pierces your reality. Your growth didn't just make you stronger, it made them irrelevant. And that's the part that scorches them from the inside out. They realize your evolution wasn't about escaping them. It was about upgrading yourself. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. It wasn't about chasing clarity. It was about embodying it. They were never the obstacle. They were simply the distraction you outgrew. And now they feel the sting of their own insignificance, not because you diminished them, but because your rise exposed how small their influence always was. But it goes deeper than that. It's not just that they lost access to you. It's that they lost access to the version of themselves they pretended to be when you were watching. People behave differently when they know they're visible to someone who sees beyond the surface. They act kinder, wiser, more composed, more loyal, not because they are, but because they fear being interpreted accurately. And when you stepped into design mode, when you withdrew your gaze, when you stopped giving them the psychological mirror that forced them to self-regulate, they reverted to their unedited selves. You didn't just outgrow them, you revealed them. The truth is, they were never worried about you being crazy. They were worried about the possibility that you weren't. Because if you weren't losing your mind, if you were actually seeing clearly, then that meant you saw through them. And now that the evidence is undeniable, now that your transformation is impossible to misinterpret, they're beginning to understand that the entire time they were mislabeling your strategy as chaos. You were quietly dismantling the illusion of who they pretended to be. Your evolution forced them to meet the unfiltered version of themselves. And it wasn't flattering. This is why they can't look you in the eye now. This is why they hesitate when they reach out. This is why their messages sound cautious, fragmented, overly polite. They're not approaching you. They're approaching the guilt inside themselves. They're not checking on you. They're checking on the unfinished conversations inside their conscience. They're not asking how you've been. They're asking if you know what they did when they thought you were breaking. And deep down, they already know the answer. Yes, you know. Yes, you saw. Yes, you understood. Yes, you documented it with the accuracy of an intelligence analyst. But here's the part that destabilizes them the most. You're not punishing them. You're not exposing them. You're not retaliating or humiliating or weaponizing the information you gathered. You're simply living. And you're living your calm, grounded, steady, unapologetic existence is the repercussion they never saw coming. Because your rise forces them to confront the truth that they weren't loyal, weren't supportive, weren't courageous, weren't present. They weren't who they pretended to be. Your strength is the proof of their weakness. Your clarity is the verdict of their confusion. Your evolution is the spotlight on their stagnation. And now, with you fully in design mode, they realize this isn't just a new chapter for you. It's a new psychological jurisdiction. You're no longer operating on the same frequency as the people who doubted you. You're no longer in the same emotional ecosystem. Your mind has recalibrated to a level where their opinions can't influence the architecture of your reality. And that's what terrifies them. You don't need them anymore. You don't fear losing them. You don't seek their approval. You don't crave their understanding. You moved from subconscious survival to conscious creation. And in doing so, you severed their relevance. Now they're left orbiting a version of you that no longer exists, reaching for someone who no longer fits the dimensions of their expectations, trying to reconnect with someone who has already transcended the radius of their reach. Because once you start designing your life with intention, You stop accepting people who belong to your old blueprint. You stop allowing access that drains you. You stop entertaining conversations that shrink you. You stop pouring energy into relationships that don't elevate you. You stop making yourself available to minds that flatten your depth. You start surrounding yourself with people who reciprocate clarity. You start gravitating toward minds that meet you at elevation. You start investing in environments that amplify your intelligence. You start embodying the truth that your life is no longer a reactionary spiral. It is an engineered ascent. And that ascent, clean, quiet, measured, will be the final psychological operation they never recover from. Because now they must watch the person they misunderstood, underestimated, misread, misjudged, and mislabeled become someone they can't even categorize. Someone whose presence disturbs their old narrative. Someone whose existence invalidates their old analysis. Someone whose evolution renders their opinions obsolete. You're not proving them wrong, you're making them irrelevant. And they feel it, deeply, inevitably, irreversibly.